Hi, everyone, and welcome back to that UFO podcast. My name is Andy, and joining me for a look at some news this week for a bit of a breakdown, fresh off of a secondment at Lockheed Martin, working on some Tic-Tac technologies. I've got Dan joining me for the first time in a while. Dan, welcome back.
Hey, it's good to be back, and yeah, lots to talk about. It's been a little while, and I'm sorry that I've been absent. I got some of that anti-gravity goop on my boot, and I was just stuck in the. You know when a balloon gets stuck up in the rafters? I've just been like that for a month. So, but I got down.
Chinese spy balloon.
Yeah.
Yeah, good timing because we were going to do this last week. I had a bit of a nightmare that day, and then the best timing for yourself and myself was today, and a lot's happened since then, which has probably changed a lot of the chatter. So, probably
Yeah.
less notes than normal for this show, but a lot to go through. There's like a really big talking point. Some random stuff we'll go over. Got some questions if we get to those, and a few things I want to chat about. Given we're past that halfway point in the year, always like to look at where we've been and where we may be going. But Dan, will we kick off with the big news then to start off with? The Tic-Tac seems so long ago, doesn't it, as a piece of news or a talking point? 2004, you know, that this whole event that came to light in 2017 properly. Idiots like us spoke about it in 2020. It was like this launching pad for all these other conversations that have happened over 5 years. And it kind of took a back seat, hasn't it, for a long time? That I suppose, what more could you say about it? What more could you look into? There's not more witnesses coming forward, unless we got the data that was allegedly taken. What more can you say? And then enter Ross Coulthart, who do you know what? I don't know why it's become such a big thing, really. I could go back and forward on it, I suppose. But if people haven't heard, Ross Coulthart on with Bryce Zabel and their latest Need to Know episode came out with a couple of big statements. The main one being that he says he believes, and actually believes is the wrong word. I don't know if you've got the exact wording, Dan, but
I do. Yeah.
yeah. Do you want to just
I know.
confirm the wording?
Yeah, sure. He says, "I now know categorically that the Tic-Tac is Lockheed Martin technology."
What's the English accent for?
That was my best Australian.
Australian is really
Is
hard
it
to
still
do.
a penal colony? Are the English sending people to Australia still? That's what happened.
No, I think we stopped that a couple of months ago. I'm
Nice.
good with my accents, but even I find Australians hard to do.
Yeah.
Oh no, that Tic-Tac is Lockheed Martin technology. No, that just sounds English. But yeah,
See,
so
you did the same.
uh, but serious news though. That this
Yeah,
has
sure.
really got
Serious.
people
Anyways.
talking. Yeah, really got people talking, Dan. It's really blown up. I think partly because it's Ross Coulthart. He's a big name. He's a name that gets a lot of people's attention. This seemed to take Bryce Zabel back a little bit on the podcast as well. The thing to go with here is we don't know why or how Ross knows this. And this is, I
Mhm.
suppose, has been a big talking point. What's your take on this? Because for me, he's not necessarily said anything. Well, no, he hasn't said anything that other folks haven't surmised, assumed, presumed, whatever you want to say about the Tic-Tac. We've heard everything from it was aliens to non-human intelligence to interdimensional beings. I think I've always kind of went with the non-human drone thing, which made some sense to me. And then Ross has come out and basically said, yeah, it's Lockheed Martin technology, Lockheed Martin folks for being a private aerospace company contractor that make the really cool gadgets and tech for people like the US Army and stuff like that. And he's just come out and said, basically, as far as he knows now, the Tic-Tac was human tech. It was ours, quote unquote. That just seems to have set the community afire.
Yeah, and when you look online, the clips that you see is just of Ross saying this. You know, he says that I now know categorically, and the clip cuts. But if you actually listen to the context of what Ross is talking about, he's not saying that it's not derived from non-human technology or an exotic thing that Lockheed found. He's just saying that they are working on, he says, 2 projects, and that the Tic-Tac is one of 2, to try and replicate it. Was the Tic-Tac that day Lockheed? Maybe, maybe not. David Fravor now works for Lockheed, right? And he said that he doesn't think that it's Lockheed. Originally, he was quite open to the idea of it being, just man-made tech. He hasn't said that he thinks it's aliens, but he said that he doesn't know what it is. We also have AARO's saying they don't know what it is. So if it's Lockheed, you're kind of wondering, like, well, what access do you have? How much work have you actually done to kind of try and figure this out? Even though, it's outside government, this would be the kind of thing that if Lockheed has that, and say the UAP Disclosure Act passes with eminent domain intact, someone from the US government could go take the Tic-Tac off Lockheed. That's the idea, I guess. There was a little bit in the conversation where Ross also suggests that people are playing disinformation agents. And when I got to the bit where he kind of said this categorically, not only was I kind of left going, okay, well, what are your sources? To which Bryce did ask that, and Ross said, I can't go there. I want to see, the working schematics for this thing, Model 1, Model 2, Model 3, how they got there, a bit more development. Because there are so many different reasons that Lockheed would want to claim that as theirs and look really good, get more contracts, kind of put adversaries off, kind of making a move if they think they've got that. But then at the same time, it could just be something unknown that Lockheed's claiming is theirs. Or maybe they've derived some things from that Tic-Tac encounter that they've incorporated into technology. And now through a game of telephone, which, as we were talking about before this show, happens all the time with UFO cases, maybe Lockheed has derived technology from the Tic-Tac, Lockheed has a Tic-Tac of their own. So it doesn't necessarily contradict the narrative that's been out since 2017, but it certainly kind of stirs the muddy water,
Can I take you back to November 2004, Dan?
Let's do it.
I was
when I was on the Nimitz.
Yeah, you were on the Nimitz. I was what would I have been, 18? Yeah, God, that seems so long ago. 18.
Yeah.
So Nimitz Princeton event, and God, I could probably get some of this wrong, but they are on training exercises off the coast of California, and there's the Nimitz Princeton. Again, there's folk listening to this that are kind of newer very quickly. It's like nuclear fleet, nuclear powered or whatever that is, how that shit works. And they've got all these fighter jets and personnel and all these different carriers, and they're doing like their practice, their training exercises essentially. And on the radar, they see these little blips. Doot, 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 doot. I always forget, was it Gary Voorhees? Was it Kevin Day that was the first one who was like,
Kevin Day, because he was on the radar.
Yeah.
So he was seeing these blips for like a week before, what happened that we talk about. But yeah, carry on. I don't want to take it under.
And some of these guys basically are told, clean the machines, not physically clean them, but they take them down, reset them, make sure everything's working okay, turn it on and off again for the old tech heads.
Basically,
and the signals look better, they look clearer, and they're told just ignore it. Again, these things are there for quite a while. So I think a lot of folks maybe newer to the subject, or the general public, would believe the Tic-Tac was a one-off event where this thing was, one of these was seen one day, is probably the general consensus if you ask folk who know a little bit about it. This was over weeks, and there were a lot of these things showing up on radar. So this is a big bone of contention with this for me. So let's go with it's Lockheed Martin technology. They had lots of them there at this time then. Would that be the assumption?
Yeah. If we're saying this is categorically Lockheed, then Lockheed has, for a week or more,
a fleet,
tested this fleet on the Princeton and the Nimitz and the crews there.
Yeah, because they were saying it was raining Tic-Tacs on the radar, where these things are dropping from 80,000 feet to just above the sea level in less than 2 seconds. If we were inside there, we would be mush. We would be Ocean Gate billionaires inside these Tic-Tacs.
Oh, that was dark. Too soon? I don't know.
No, it's not. I've watched the documentary. It's not too soon.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Yeah. He was a prick.
That's fine, then.
And they would have known nothing about it. Literally, they would have been vaporized into pink mist before they even. Yeah. So yeah.
Within like a second.
Go watch the documentary, by the way. The guy, if not saying anyone deserves that kind of ending, right? But if anyone did, the Ocean Gate owner, like, it might be up there for the Forerunner. But anyway, so
they'd be crushed to hear your review.
Absolutely would be. Yeah. So and they were inside a kind of Tic-Tac shaped thing as well. But anyway, this one worked. So it was these were dropping down in incredible speeds from a great height to just above the ocean. They were hovering there for sometimes 12, 14 hours at a time. We know then that, Dave Fravor had the incident where he engaged with one of them. It came up to meet him. It then went shot off to the cap point. So there's still, I see loads of people having that same conversation online, and I've said this so many times, and I must have looked it up in the past, Dan, but the cap point was just the a random plot point out at sea. They use like a map to work out we're going to meet here. So if I said to you, "Oh, we're going to meet at King's Cross Station," it would be King's Cross Station, but out at sea where there's nothing to mark. So it's like a
Yeah.
latitude and longitude point, yeah, something like that. So
Yeah,
you know where
exactly. If
where
anything
to
goes
meet.
wrong, meet here.
Yeah,
You know,
meet
if you got your kids
at
in a
this
theme
bit.
park and you say, meet us at the ice cream stand, if
Yeah,
anything goes wrong,
that's
that's
it.
our home base.
That's the ice cream stand. So they're going to meet there. The Tic-Tac turns up at this point. There's a lot of conjecture here where people really double down on it must have been alien because it read their minds and knew the cat point, but I believe that point had been used over and over and over again during those training exercises. So there's
Yep.
nothing to say that it wasn't a learned behavior or an observation where it just went there to say, well, we know you go here, or we know this point, we know this location. Performed incredible speeds. It took off. There seemed to be no signs of propulsion. 40-foot long Tic-Tac, but there was loads of them. So why would Lockheed be testing so many of them? Do you know what? If it's Lockheed, again, we're going to go with this for now. I could see them testing one
Mm-hmm.
because there's an element of, excuse me, while the motorbike goes by in the background, folks. Not my motorbike. I don't have one. But the the uh, the the thing that proper put me off. The they're testing if something goes wrong with one of these Tic-Tacs, that's easy to cover up. You know, you go out there, the people watching it, operating it, go out and they speak to higher ups and yeah, it's secret US technology. Let's clear this up. Don't talk about it. NDAs, all that stuff. 20, 30, 40, 50 of these objects, though, that just doesn't make any sense to me for like a real top secret. And what is it called when you test on your own? Is it blue
Blue on
something?
blue.
Blue on
Yeah.
blue?
Blue on blue is friendly. Blue on red is like a opposition, you know.
Yeah, Smurf on Smurf. So blue on blue.
Don't
They're
type that into Google.
yeah, Smurf on Smurf, yeah. A bit of blue on blue. So yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me as to why there'd be so many for so long out there. Can you help me make any sense of why that would be?
I really can't, because I completely wholeheartedly agree with you. They have these secure testing ranges. You know, as we've seen with Skywatcher, they were able to go onto a range and kind of rent a bit of space and use that space. But in all of their videos, they've always said, you know, there are other objects being tested in these spaces. So we've got to kind of deconflict against those when we're seeing these objects. Something like if Lockheed had a Tic-Tac, they'd be testing it in that kind of space. And sure, they would eventually get to a place where they want to test it properly, kind of on, you know, blue on blue or blue on red. But if you're testing it somewhere like off the east coast of America that's not secure, you're just doing it against carrier fleets. And like you quite rightly said, this went on for weeks. What happens if, you know, one of those gets shot down? Because I imagine Russia and China and all the American adversaries are watching those carrier exercises to see what intelligence they can glean off it. So if you were testing, you know, one, you know, you might lose it, but you can track it and gain it back. If you're going to test like 10 over multiple days repeatedly, then it just heightens the chances that something's going to be shot down and retrieved, and then the US has your technology. So, or an adversary does. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, and I'm willing to kind of, you know, hold that place and bite my tongue and listen to more that Ross has to share on this, because I'm sure he has good reason for saying it. He feels justified. He's not just pulling our leg, but it doesn't make sense to me as it is, and that's before we even get into these. Well, what about in the 50s and 60s when, you know, these propane tank like things, which is just a Tic-Tac, were being seen? Maybe the modern day Tic-Tac was derived from the things in the 50s and 60s. Possible, but we're guessing because we've been left with just that really kind of incendiary statement and not much to support it. I bet, who was it? Was it Mike Turber that said that he went for a ride in a Tic-Tac and it was absolutely Lockheed, and then he decided maybe 2 years later to kind of say, no, it was just an exercise. I wanted to see people how people reacted to it. And now I'm expecting him to pop up any day saying, see, I told you so, and kind of just try and reclaim that narrative.
Oh,
But just to say, like, it's not the first time this has been said. You
no.
know, like, this has been talked about since 2017. But we keep hearing from people like Lou and Jay Stratton, and looking in those BAS documents that were kind of accidentally leaked through Phenom AI on their platform for UFO studies. No one seemed to know what this was. All of these officials, all of these departments just didn't seem to know what this was. So if it's Lockheed, they are not. They're not doing things on the up and up. They're not doing testing the usual way they do testing. I would say that.
Eric Burleson, congressman, was on a podcast, Timcast, back in May, and he shared he had spoken to someone who said the Tic-Tac was Lockheed Martin technology back then. And like you say, it's been said before, and probably it speaks to Ross's reputation and standing amongst the community that him coming out and saying this had such a big reaction. And it's a very broad reaction as well. So, fair play to Ross that him making that kind of comment. I think there's a responsibility there, but Ross, I believe, knows that. And like you said, he wouldn't be saying this without good reason. But Burleson said this back in May. I seen a few folks then comment, Dan, that if indeed in 2004 Lockheed Martin had anything like anti-gravitic propulsion, a Tic-Tac, or a whole fleet of Tic-Tacs, they have just lost the contract to Boeing for the F-47 fighter jet. That was a contract worth $20 billion. So that, even for a private contractor at aerospace, that's not small change. $20 million maybe. $20 billion is a chunk of money. Would Lockheed Martin not own aerospace, even if they had this stuff which is really, really, really black budget, top secret, compartmentalized away from even most of the Lockheed Martin staff, which you imagine this kind of thing still would be? It would be a very small group of folks within Lockheed Martin, and even perhaps some employees who weren't officially Lockheed Martin would be involved in it, private contractors of private contractors, that weird thing. It doesn't make sense that 20 years later they're losing out on contracts unless they don't need a $20 billion contract for something because they have this other stuff. What's your take on that?
It's difficult. Even in that scenario, I would think that certain aspects of that technology would make it into other things. So if they're making a new fighter jet, they would be like, oh, look, we got this crazy thing that makes it go higher, faster, and cheaper, like that kind of stuff. But I mean, we've also heard it's possible that they've learned nothing about this, and this is the whole problem and why they don't want to talk about it. It's quite possible that it's stovepiped inside Lockheed, and this stuff just isn't getting to where it needs to go for someone to get a $20 billion contract, if they just don't know that it's in storage there. But you would think that, because in the interview, Ross says that China are catching up on this kind of technology. He mentions Russia as well. The US supposedly has it through Lockheed.
He mentions that China's not only catching up but had a huge substantial leap.
Yes.
So if you mention US, Russia, China, it's like maybe not even worry about Russia because China has become so far advanced, and that the US is so much more advanced is a bit of a myth. I actually had a point. I done the kind of solo news roundup the other day, so it's hard to kind of argue with myself or make the point to myself.
But like Gollum just on the screen.
Yeah. But fair play to Ross that he's not pandering to a US audience, that he doesn't mind saying something that a lot of folks in the US are very patriotic and they wouldn't like to hear, that as the number one superpower, they have been overtaken or could be overtaken in any way, shape, or form. However, Ross was quite happy. And I thought there was the interesting dynamic between himself and Bryce, which there is at times. Bryce doesn't seem too fussed on raising an interesting point against Ross or disagreeing with him. But you could see Bryce a bit taken back as an American to be like, I'm not too sure how to take this. When Ross was like, look, China's catching up, if not ahead of you. And the US know this, which I think puts an interesting spin on this whole debate. And I suppose we can talk about the drone stuff that Ross mentioned within that as well.
Yeah, because that's what it gets into, right? Is the drones over New Jersey. Who was that? There's obviously the aspect of, what happened with the US and Iran, and that there are certain companies within the US that thrive. Their bottom line gets bigger and they make a lot more money when the US is at war. So they're people there that are going to be trying to get into wars with other countries, and China's kind of tippy top of that in terms of tension, right? Russia a bit too, but I think Trump and Russia have kind of, I don't know, they've changed that relationship a little
Careful.
bit, and it develops every day. I'm not going to go into whether I agree with it or not, but it's suffice to say, I think the relationship is a little bit different to what it was under Biden, and so it's very possible that the US has been leapfrogged. I can understand why someone would kind of guffaw at the suggestion because of the amount that's spent by the US is more than like the next 4 biggest spenders on defense
I think
on
it's
the
even
planet.
more than that. Have you seen the
Something crazy,
infographic
yeah.
where it's like it shows you like in columns, and then
I
it's
was gonna
like,
look for it,
yeah, it's
but
so
so I
good.
thought I'd be conservative
Yeah,
with what I was saying. But even being conservative, like
yeah.
the US spends so much more, exponentially more than the kind of next ones on the list. So how could they be leapfrogged if they've got this incredible intelligence apparatus and so on and so forth? And Ross does kind of push the conversation towards like, yeah, okay, Lockheed having a Tic-Tac is one thing, but really the big talking point here is that China is ahead. There are people in the US that are frustrated that nothing's being done to kind of catch up or take it seriously or anything like that. And so we're now kind of in a place where, what is the line that Ross says? How do they begin to tell the truth when our adversaries have leapfrogged us? And it's a good point because it comes across like an intelligence failing, right?
Hmm.
And they'll kind of be a reckoning. If they're spending that much and they're that far behind or being leapfrogged, then that's a real bad thing. I did notice the Ross kept saying "we" when talking about Americans, and he's Australian, and he changed it a few times, but I was laughing. I could feel the Americans out there just like skin crawling. Like, why are you saying "we"? I took it like a, I bet you do it with Rangers. You say we played well today, and it's like, well, you was out on your butt in the stands. You're not
Yeah,
the Rangers
yeah, but
football team, but
I'm
it's
I'm
still we.
I'm in the stadium cheering on the overpaid shite on the pitch in front of us.
You're
New
the
new
lucky
manager,
charm.
new players coming in, as I text you the other day about. So yeah, see how it goes this season. We've been here before. But anyway,
Yeah.
before all the Celtic fans turn off.
But it did make me think of just one more thing I want to touch on before saying that. Ross said the Tic Tac is part of 2 technologies Lockheed has been working on, and the other technology, I would guess, if someone put a gun to my head and say guess what that is, I would say it's silver orbs. I've heard from several people that, and I've said it before on this podcast, that the US was close to having silver orbs that could just, through electromagnetics, look like they're floating. So I would expect it's probably that, or orbs and whatever is derived from the Tic Tac, just as a guess there. But this drone stuff also, it plugs into that. When was it? It was a couple of months back now, where that guy drove the Tesla, the Cybertruck, outside the
January.
Trump Hotel and blew it up, and he claimed that China had these anti-gravitic drones, right?
It was
What did you think of that?
Jake Livelsberger. Yeah, I brought this up
That's it.
on the Discord about he was a guy at the Tesla. It blew up, or it was blown up. He was suicided or unalived. However, the algorithm wants to read into that. Yeah, I'm getting better with
Speaking
that.
like the cool kids I see.
I am down with the kids. Bebo and MySpace. I've got nothing on me. But yeah, but there was a whole weird thing came out at the time where he had left this sort of, I don't know, do you call it a manifesto, or that the drone stuff was all a false flag and it was going to lead to like an alien invasion type scenario, and that came and went very quickly.
Mhm.
And I saw a lot of folks online commenting that some of the stuff he mentioned kind of then rings true in what Ross is saying with the drone stuff, with the Tic Tac being Lockheed Martin. It maybe just is it's basic connect the dots though, and I'm not saying that perhaps there was something to it or there wasn't, but it maybe is too easy to make those connections because it's nothing that hasn't been said over the years and decades.
Yeah.
Dan, correct me if I'm wrong. You can speak for yourself. I know I very much at the time was on the side of the drone stuff seemed very much human tech. I couldn't see
Yeah.
anything in videos online that looked spectacular. It just looked like lights flying in the sky. It was weird. I always said that there was so much around it, and these things were being filmed. But yeah, I didn't see a whole lot to that other than it being US or something to that. Yeah, I'm
And what have they
hmm.
blamed? They blamed it on the FAA, didn't they? And the FAA categorically denied it when it was happening. So we still don't know what's to kind of blame. We also had the rumor that there was an Iranian tanker off the coast that these drones were coming from. China was kind of floated around also that they were looking for like a dirty bomb, a nuclear bomb in
That
New
was one of the
Jersey, and
popular
that turned out to be
theories.
like medical equipment that was a tiny amount.
Was
But
it?
that's that was the paperwork that
Yeah.
someone put out when they said it, and it showed that it was this tiny thing. So, but that took like a week to pass through for people. So, because none of us are experts in this stuff, and that's why I think it's better to kind of take it seriously but hold it lightly whilst the wheels spin, and someone like Mick West will present his side, and the believers will present their side, and then you can kind of weigh it up, and still come out with more questions and saying I don't know. But the thing that stood out for me is where they're talking about advanced drones. And I spoke to a little while back the head of, or the ex-head of the FBI's counter drone unit, and he took me through the technologies that they had to kind of take drones out, how they worked, what they wanted, the fact that they weren't being given enough funding to teach local law enforcement to be able to take down drones and assess drones properly. And so the ability to identify something as advanced in terms of drones in New Jersey is really lacking. There's not anything really there that you can say, yeah, we found XYZ, so it's definitely advanced. And the videos that people were putting up, saying that these orbs were turning into planes turned out to just be like planes turning in the sky and things like that.
Yep.
And so yeah, nothing exotic, I would say, seemed present to me. And when people are saying things like, oh, but the drone guns didn't knock them out of the sky, we have to remember that, drones aren't magic. Just like your phone has, when you open, you go into a new place and you get in Wi-Fi, and you go in and you open your Wi-Fi and there's like a network that's 2.4 and a network that's 5 gigahertz. Everything that uses radio space uses a specific kind of frequency on that radio space. Wi-Fi are those two frequencies, 2.4 and 5. But when it comes to drones, they communicate on certain frequencies with the base station, the
Yep.
person controlling it. So if say I was an adversary and I knew that the US had XYZ technology that worked on certain bands, I would just make a drone that didn't work on those frequency bands. And
Yep.
then the effect that happens is someone goes, oh, the drone gun didn't work. It's advanced. It must be aliens or anti-gravity China drone, when really it's just a normal drone that just changed its settings a little bit so it wasn't affected. We've got to remember that when people say advanced, break it down like that, get into why is it advanced, like what would actually take to skirt the technologies that are available. And like everything else, today the US makes a technology that can stick a drone out the sky. Tomorrow the adversary makes a drone that isn't affected by the technology. The next day the US makes technology that can take that drone down. The next day, and it's just a constant cat and mouse game of this kind of stuff, of really really rudimentary things that they can change to make their weapons and anti-drone weapons ineffective.
Bryce Sable at the end of the recording with Ross Coulthart, he did say, and I thought this is a really fair point to bring up because Ross done most of the talking on the episode, that he feels in all of this, for it all to make sense, and that's the Tic-Tac stuff, the drones being human tech, non-human tech, and the Tic-Tac being reverse engineered, back engineered, whatever it might be, it almost seems like there needs to be another player in all of this, that it can't just be the US, China, Russia, private contractors. And for me, he's alluding there to a non-human intelligence somewhere along that line is at play. I done a quick check, Dan, on where people were kind of at with this whole thing on a poll, and I just asked, for the Tic-Tac is, and I put human tech, non-human tech, and reverse engineered tech. Now, the difference, obviously, with non-human tech and reverse engineered tech is that non-human is alien, reverse engineered is it's ours, but we've used it from alien technology, and then human tech is we've just designed it ourselves without anything back engineered. Only 17% of 1,000 people thought it was human tech. 44% of people said non-human, so aliens, essentially. And then 40%, so pretty close, said reverse engineered. So there's still a huge uncertainty there, but the idea that it's just human tech doesn't fly with most folks, which is, would you expect it to land about there?
Yeah, I would imagine, an even split between the three. The believers are very passionate. The debunkers are very passionate. I think that would be a fair reflection of the community in what I've seen.
There's not. I am joined an X space where people were chatting through this yesterday. Someone called Marie.
Are you okay? How was it?
I'm fine. Do you
Stuart?
know, it was so weird. It was I famously, in my own head, don't don't get involved in X or Twitter spaces. But it was okay. It happened to pop up. It was like lunchtime. I was working my day job, doing some stuff. I was doing podcast stuff on a different screen, and I was like, oh, I saw it pop up at the side, and I went, I'll click on it just for a minute or two. And there was some interesting chat just to hear what people are saying about the Tic-Tac stuff, and there was some disagreement going on. Got a little bit heated between a few people, but generally some good points and stuff were being made. So I thought that was quite interesting. But yeah, I don't plan on going in too many of them. I don't have a lot of time for that kind of stuff. But yeah, there was some good folks hosting them, and I see it seems to be there's a whole community of folks that enjoy doing these things quite regular. So yeah, didn't put me off. But a lot of good debate going on around it, and for me, it's not divided. People were divided anyway. We talked about this quite a lot, Dan, over the last couple of months, and maybe more than that. The community is quite disparate, whatever you want to call it, fractured anyway. I'm just surprised, I think, the more I kind of keep looking at it, how much of an impact this statement of Ross's has had. I'd love to hear him follow up on it, and it needs to, in some way, shape, or form, I think. And if it is just that, I've got sources and I believe them, then that's fine. But he has thought differently in the past, so could that change? Who could change his mind? That would go a
Yeah,
long way to helping.
it would be nice to, because there's a difference between someone told Ross a story and someone showed Ross a video of it working at a Lockheed facility, and these are the development stages, and this is how much they spent on it, and these are the personnel that worked on it. Very different levels of authentication. So yeah, and I think Ross is doing a Ask Me Anything on his News Nation a
He
reality
does
check show.
regular Q&As on it now.
Yeah. So I saw someone said that they just recorded one like after the Bryson Ross Need to Know show. So I think a lot of questions there are going to be towards Ross about this claim. Yeah, it's a strange one to consider because it kind of means, okay, if Lockheed have had this and they're just keeping it under wraps, then they've let the world struggle. They've let the country that's given them the contract struggle. There's a lot to be answered for there in terms of what are they using it for? Why are they keeping it secret? Reminds me a bit of the oil industry, though, and climate change and how they were in the 60s and 70s. And now it came out that they knew that what they were doing had this adverse effect on the climate, the planet, and they did it anyway because they wanted money. And I don't know, maybe someone in that mix is evil, but all of them feel righteous and they've gotten us to this place instead of just being transparent about it. And it could be that Lockheed are like, okay, this is the best we've got, but we're not going to let it out because the second someone sees us using it, they're going to develop the same thing, and we don't have anything that can beat it. So until they have something that can beat it, they might not let it out. That kind of seems like, I'm trying to think like a defense contractor would think.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I use my most powerful thing to just end the war immediately?
Maybe a
And yeah,
happy
the
medium.
skittishness.
Yeah, a
Bit of
happy
both,
medium
bit of
would
A, bit of
be
B.
get the Tic-Tac technology, put all the Just Stop Oil protesters on board and show them it working from 80,000 feet to the sea level in 2 seconds, just so they can go out knowing that, yeah, we do have this clean energy and it's coming soon. And then that solves a whole lot of problems and they can
But
stop interrupting sport events.
if if it is, the technology is being described, they wouldn't die if they were inside it, right? They would be in this bubble or whatever, and the inertia would be dampened, so they just get off when it landed and be like,
Not
oh, that
on
was
this one.
interesting.
That the bubble
Not on
wasn't
this,
turned on.
it's
No.
turned off.
Yeah.
Just human error. Someone forgot
Yeah.
to turn it on when. Okay.
It would make a great Netflix documentary though. So yeah, moving on then, Dan, from that one. I wanted to get your opinions very quickly on MUFON Symposium. Have you seen much about this coming up?
I have not. No, I think I saw that Thomas Jane is talking there. That's the only thing I've seen.
Yes. So the 17th to the 20th of July, Northern Kentucky Convention Center in Cincinnati, Ohio. Live stream worldwide, couple of days event. Big talking point, though, is they are revealing materials of unknown origin, which they've talked about last year. And they're saying lab analyzed physical evidence linked to non-human intelligence. What's your take on this? For me, I've said before, I don't think if they had genuinely incredible exotic material of non-human origin, that you would hold it for months, build up a live event over a 3-day event, and then live stream it. If it was really that good, you would. I don't even think you'd have to jump on the news anymore. You could contact Joe Rogan's people and be like, I've got this really great material and it's genuinely something. Here's some of the early results. I'd love to share it live on your podcast, and they will snap you up like that. And you will get your money and everything, and a huge audience of millions. There are so many ways to kind of get their stuff out there now. I just think anyone who's expecting something big from that, I would love to be blown away, but I can't see it.
Yeah, same. Because with stuff like this, it was true of the whole Nazca mummies, right? The way it was presented at a UFO hearing was the wrong way to present an anthropological find and have it taken seriously. The world of anthropology is not free of kind of skepticism and people going at each other. But when Dr. Lee Berger presented the Homo naledi stuff, it was controversial, but he did it through science and with papers, and because he did it in the proper way, people came around a lot easier when they realized, oh, this is actually legit and it's a legitimate find, and so are all of the kind of things that he's finding from them. Whereas presenting at a UFO conference, something world shaking, is not the way to be taken seriously with these things. It kind of kneecaps you right away. I don't know what conference you present at, though, even though I'm saying that. Maybe the Sol Foundation, they have their Stardust repository. They've got their symposium coming up. Lots of academics on board that want to study this stuff. That would probably be a better place to present this.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know what MUFON has to show us. They could, for all I know, show up with a bunch of peer-reviewed papers that blows everything out of the water. So I'm just kind of guessing. But seeing something on the Daily Mail website that's presented at a MUFON conference and said to be ET, if I was impartial to this subject, it wouldn't move me, right? Like, the only people that are going to watch a MUFON conference are the people that are into this subject anyway and are more likely to believe that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, that's not unfair. I've just remembered there was a really good question from Dave, Sneaky Dave, in the Discord around Tic-Tacs and Skywatcher that I think is
Oh,
really,
cool.
really
Okay.
good. We'll get to it when we talk about the Skywatcher stuff, because
Okay.
what I'd quite like to do, Dan, is, like I say, given we're halfway through the year, and I might split this up into 2 episodes now just because we've gone about 40 minutes. There's a lot of stuff that have kind of happened. I said to you, I don't know if you've done it, but have you got a couple of things from the first part of the year that you want to chat through?
Yeah,
If
I
you
mean, off the top
don't,
of my
I've
head, we
got
could do this.
3 that might be quite similar anyway, but I know you've got some other news items we'll look at. But right, couple of things for me that I'm looking going. We've had a pretty solid 6 months. A lot's happened. For some people, almost too much has happened. A lot of things seem to have started. Do you know what it's a bit like? Do you ever go through a phase where you've nothing to watch on? You've not got like a series you're hooked on, right?
Yes.
And you start loads of series, but don't really get into any of them or finish any of them.
Uh-huh.
I think that's what
You're just finding.
the UFO network is like currently for people, where they're just trying to find a series that really grips them. Mobland for
I
me
literally
currently, by the way.
did this morning and then realized that Always Sunny had started the new season. So that's my new series now. Yay.
Not for us in the UK, Dan, obviously yet. So
Oh, is it not? Okay.
no spoilers yet. I'll find it. Yeah, I'll find it. I'll find it on
Yeah,
the high seas.
it's on the high seas. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I'll find it on the high seas.
Harrowing.
But yes, a lot's happened, and some of the stuff that's kind of came and went. First off, it's an oldie, but it checks out. To quote Star Wars, Age of Disclosure, right, for me, is a big talking point here. Have they missed their window? This is something we heard about for a lot. You're nodding away. So this is something we heard about for a long time, right? Even before we knew the name of it and who was properly involved, there was rumours of a game-changing documentary was in the works. Dave Fravor and others had mentioned it on various conferences, podcasts, and it was kind of murmured and rumoured for a long time. We then found out it was going to premiere and debut at South by Southwest Film Festival. Great place for that to happen back in March. It had 2 showings, and that's not just your elite. It was your normal pond scum like me, general public, Dan, were able to go in and see it if they had tickets to the film festival and got in. Reactions were positive. I spoke to a few listeners who were there at the time, but it's been seen. It's not got a proper release yet. It hasn't changed the game. It seemed interesting. It's a lot of talking heads. We've been told that. There's no footage. It can be quite dry from what we're told. I'm looking forward to seeing it. I don't think it's going to tell us anything that we don't know or that we. And I think me and you talked about this before, that for folks involved in the topic, it's not going to be anything we don't know or don't see. Even a Mike Rounds recently with Ross Coulthart coming out and saying, it's crazy to think that there aren't other intelligences out there. That's quite a big statement, but this to me just seems like it's that in documentary form, with lots of people where you would go, oh, that's great to hear them say that, but it's not going to change anything. So for me, first big question, age of disclosure, have they missed their window?
I think, sadly for me, I was literally talking to someone about this the other day. Yes, they have. I think they had the hype in the community on their side. I think they had the energy to kind of push it from the community. James Fox's films have done really well because of passionate community members, kind of free marketing and word of mouth kind of getting out there. I think they might have lost their window. And I hear that it's due to the fact that they're trying to get a good distribution deal. They want a cinema run. But I gotta say, man, like, when was the last time you went to see a documentary in the cinema?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
if you're actually asking me,
yeah, have you ever? I think The Cove was the one I went to see. It was an Oscar-winning one a while back about the kind of shameful practice of capturing dolphins and whales to put in aquariums and illegally sell them as food and things like that. Harrowing documentary, but I think that was, I want to say, like 2012, 2010, somewhere around there. I can't even remember. It was so long ago.
I mean, I've had to Google famous documentaries just to find so much of it is stuff.
Final Tap.
Nah, never seen it.
Have you not?
I've still
You've
never
lost
seen
Final
it. Nah.
Tap. Total piss take.
I'm even looking back at things like Bowling for Columbine back in the day.
Oh, sure.
I don't know if I saw that in a cinema or if I rented that when I worked in Blockbuster.
Sure.
So much
Inconvenient
stuff.
Truth. Like, they're the ones that I think did well in the cinema. But
I don't know if I have. Like,
they just don't do well in the cinema. You have something like The Blair Witch, like a mockumentary or a comedy or a horror kind of films like that. Great, it'll do gangbusters in the cinema. But people just don't go see documentaries. They're more like, you're not going to go to Odeon or these big AMC cinemas out here to see a documentary. You'll find them in like these small art house cinemas kind of scattered around. So even if they got a cinema release, I don't think it's going to be crazy wide.
People aren't going to see movies in the cinema.
No.
They're really struggling for just movies unless it catches fire or goes viral. But even look at Marvel are now starting to struggle in a cinema.
I was just gonna say, like Thunderbolts. Like I rewatched Thunderbolts last night, and I know I've told you, like, watch it. It's really great. I
Loads
really
of people
enjoyed it the second
commented
time
this.
through.
I mentioned this last week, Dan. I hadn't seen it yet. Loads of people were like, "You need to see it." And I will.
It's good, but it kind of touches on what we're talking about. It had good word of mouth. It's a goddamn Marvel movie, and it face planted at the box office.
Yeah.
People just don't like. COVID changed things when it comes to the cinema. People know that they can watch things at home within 2-3 months of something being in the cinema, sometimes even 2-3 weeks now. And so, are you going to spend £100 to take your 3 kids and partner to the cinema to see a UFO documentary, popcorn, all that kind of stuff on top of that? Are you going to do that?
And then it's a UFO documentary with no footage, with no explosive reveals. It's a very dry talking heads type piece. So yeah, for me, unless I can only see, unless they have this put aside for a reason, for a certain time, for it to coincide with something. But I don't. I think, like you say, they're just looking for the best distribution deal, and it really just seems
Yeah.
like Homer Simpson cashing in his pumpkin shares right around January. Like it's
Yeah, like in a way, I can understand because Dan Farrar, the guy who made this, he was involved in like Ready Player One. He's a big Hollywood guy, so I can understand why people in Hollywood are like cinema releases of the cream of the crop. That's what we got to do to be a legitimate film release. We need that. That's classy, you know. But times have changed. The models have changed. Is
yeah.
it better in a cinema where no one sees it, or is it better on the front page of Netflix worldwide for 24 hours? More people are going to see it the second way. It's just the way things are now, you know. And then it'll be broken down into clips for TikTok, 30 seconds, 60 seconds. You know, like that's just how things go these days.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, that I think it's missed its window. I don't think it's going to get a cinema release. I think you'd be lucky to have it in a couple of small art house type establishments. Even then, is it going to do anything? Is it worth doing that? For me, it should be on a Netflix ASAP. We've got hearings apparently scheduled for July, are going to be happening in July.
Yep.
Can you even get it
And
on a
it
platform
like
that quickly?
like that's this month. So if the hearings happen this month, the film's outdated. Like I
Yep.
would argue it's outdated now, but it's majorly outdated if more hearings happen and they don't include them in the documentary. James Fox spoke about this, how you keep up with this constant churning kind of thing that is the UFO subject and legislation and so on and so forth. If it's old, it's old. You know, people aren't going to eat it up. It'll be a nice on ramp for people that haven't followed it, but are they going to go see it in the
But
cinema? Are
right,
they going to switch it out?
devil's advocate, is it going to
Sure.
be now a good on ramp for that? Because people who aren't into the subject, they're still generally on TikTok, on X, on Instagram, whatever platform they use for social media, and they're seeing all this kind of stuff already in 1,000 different
Sure.
clips. Jesse Michaels is getting views into the millions. Lex Friedman, if he does any kind of UFO stuff, would get that. Joe Rogan is obviously going to get that. Stephen Bartlett would get that. So all these platforms are there, which are getting huge numbers of views, whether it's social engagement clips or whatever it be, long form interviews, quick, snappy reporting, articles, blogs. All this stuff is out there already. Carl Nell is saying stuff. Mike Rounds is saying stuff. Rubio, Warner, they've all said stuff. Do you need it packaged in this? It's almost like, you've got the 7 series of 24. I think they made more than that, right? But there's 7 series of 24, and you've got them all already. But here's the collector's edition box set. Is everyone rushing out to buy that? Some people will, but most folk will be happy with their 7 individual series. They've got them all already.
Uh,
Yeah, but there's some bonus content here and some bloopers and some alternate takes. Cool. But again, I've got mostly everything over here, or I can find it online. So yeah, for me, they've missed their window with it, and I wonder, is that just going to be detrimental to them now trying to get their window, their distribution deal? Because who are you pitching this to?
yeah,
In a volatile market, because right now you even look at Superman is literally about a drop. When this comes out, it's the day of release for Superman. Um,
yeah, that's right.
I've seen good reviews so far. I've seen other people say they've seen bad reviews. I'm quite excited to go and see it. Um, I'm taking the 2 boys to go and see it tomorrow.
Cool.
My youngest is really happy that Superman's dog's in it. That's the selling point for him. He thinks this is really
Yeah,
cool that Crypto's in it. My older one didn't want to see Jurassic World, isn't too fussed on the Marvel movies now, but he was like, "Oh, go and see Superman." Like, kind of,
yeah.
just out of interest. I'm intrigued to go and see it because it looks like it could be awful or quite good. Um, but yeah, I just think when something like Superman, like a proper brand, a name, a staple in people's homes, they know Superman. What chance does Age of Disclosure have?
Yeah, I think that's succinctly put, isn't it? I would much prefer to see a 4-hour interview with Dan Farrar on Joe Rogan where they watch this together and just do a commentary. Pause it every now and then, talk about the statements that are being made, talk about the behind the scenes of it. I think that would be richer. I think it would move more people. I think more people would watch that probably, given the size of Rogan's audience.
Do you take it and make it a series? Do you go, look, we've got 90 minutes of footage, we've got a couple hours we didn't use. Let's maybe now splice in some stuff, some stock footage, some famous sightings. Do they have to change it up a little bit? I don't know.
Maybe that's what, because I can imagine a world where Netflix is like, yeah, the UFO documentary would be good, but it's an hour and a half, so we're going to give you X amount of money for it. But if you can get us 4 episodes and it's a series, and maybe we can do a season 2 in a couple of years, we'll give you a little bit more money for that. That'll get more eyeballs. It's more watch time, and that's what we care about here at Netflix.
Yeah,
it almost feels like I want this in the cinema, and it has to be a proper film. Is the opposite of what the current kind of media consumption climate
for
is.
this especially. And the Netflix CEO must be looking, going, I've got 100 UFO documentaries in my archive already. This will be a nice addition to the collection. Yeah, so I'd be interested to hear what people think on that. I will guess that most folks would agree or fall down on the similar side to us, that they've perhaps missed our window unless there's something big happens. Who knows? Next one for me, Dan. Again, one where the clock is very much ticking. Skywatcher. So
Skywatcher is my number one. I was just going to say, do you want me to do one first?
Do you know what?
This is my number one.
Do you want to go on? Go on. Cat Skywatcher.
Well, I guess we both have stuff to talk about with it. So for me, what's happening with Skywatcher? Their initial claim at the beginning of the year was that they had the footage that was going to blow the doors off this thing. Ross even said all hell was going to break loose, and he's never said that it was Skywatcher he was talking about when he said that, but this is Skywatcher came out just after he said that. So I think it's logical to connect the two, but again, just connecting dots. But there seems to be there's a finite clock on it. They've said that by the end of 2025, they're going to have, their kind of the house in order and their proofs kind of put down, and their science plan kind of progressing. But we just keep getting these episodes that they're well made, well produced. It's like Skinwalker Ranch, but Skywatcher Ranch, without the ad breaks, of course. But we're not seeing the stuff that they've promised, the proof. We're getting blurry videos, and I think I'm happy to wait and see what they come up with to the end of the year. But the clock is ticking, and I think, looking from January to now, I think the trust in the organization is kind of diminishing in the community. There are a lot of kind of naysayers against what Skywatcher are doing, about their transparency, about how much they're letting us in on, who's involved, their actual techniques, and so on and so forth. I think a lot more transparency from them would go a long way to making people kind of trust them again.
Yeah, I spoke to 1 or 2 people involved. Nothing major, and that's not me being like, oh, super secret sources, right? Because it's people know. Just it's their own opinion, so I'm not sharing it. It's up to them to do it. That Skywatcher has something big, and it's exciting, and they'll show the goods. However, we talked a lot, didn't we, Dan, back in the last few months of recording, where it almost seems like some of it got walked back from what they initially were announcing they had. Maybe there was a rhyme or reason for that could have made sense. Here was a great point that Sneaky Dave made on the Discord chat. Skywatcher, who Ross Coulthart brought forward in his interview with Jake Barber, have said they have summoned a Tic-Tac. If the Tic-Tac is human technology, how are they summoning it with a dog whistle?
Very good point, Dave.
Go on, Dan.
Is there just like an Achilles heel in their technology that, like, I don't know, like, I could kill my phone, but if I had like a certain frequency there, is it like an unintended consequence?
Is it the frequency thing, though, where whatever these things operate on, they can, but then imagine you're Lockheed Martin and you're going, right, guys, we're going to test today on the Omaha fleet, and where are they going? Whoa, all the Tic-Tacs are fucking off, and they're all flying off into the distance, and it's
you call the boss. I
did
it last time.
Yeah,
like tell the boss we've lost 5 Tic-Tacs.
They're off again.
Gonna have to build new ones.
What frequency were they on? Did you have it on 1.6? Oh shit, sorry.
I imagine when the Gallifreyans in Doctor Who created the TARDIS and switched it on, and it went through time. They probably lost a bunch of models. That's probably the reason we don't have a time machine.
Such a
it's very nerdy, but I know
relevant.
Some listeners will.
It's relevant now. But yeah, so for me, the clock's ticking. It's been May was the last time they released some of those instructional videos. Again, I suppose you've got to look and go, who is the audience they're aiming those videos at? Because it's people like us watching them, and people who listen to this and watch this who are going, okay, we kind of know this stuff. So who is that being marketed at? It's almost like you'd be
Yeah.
better putting it. I know people are going to revulse at this, but you'd be better having it on a History Channel, because I don't know who those videos are for otherwise. Not that
Yeah.
TV's the be all and
And
end all, we've just said that, but
there's been some conversation, wasn't there? I know we spoke about this before, that Skywatcher were less talking to us and more kind of posturing to the people in the legacy program to kind of go, look, we're tiptoeing close to the line. We're going to do
yep.
this, and that you either let us back in or you come out with a bit of information here that backs us. But so far, no one's come out with information that, backs them. I don't know if that technique is working for them or what. Yeah, it was no one from Skywatcher that has spoken to me about that technique, by the way, that they're trying to kind of nudge the legacy program secret keepers to come out with more info. It's just conjecture in the community. Because I guess we're all watching, kind of going, like you say, who is this for? And that's one of the theories.
And at this point as well, though, it's like, what are we actually watching? Because there's nothing to
Yeah.
watch. And even like, I'd argued, I'd made the point, which I think is only fair. They don't owe technically any of us anything. They've got private funding. They're not crowdsourcing. They're not openly asking for cash from people where you'd maybe be due or owed updates or some kind of forum to log on and access and see what the guys are doing. Some kind of almost like a Skinwalker 24/7 type app. They have given their updates, and then perhaps it's been a deliberate move to take a step back from that public conversation and public interaction, and then before you know it, bang, they drop a video one day and here's psionic stuff, and wow, there's really something to this. That very well could happen, and I'm going to give them every faith that it does. But it just seems like they went from being quite loud and noisy about it to very quiet without any,
Yeah.
okay. Like when you've got that mate who just stops talking for a few months in a group chat and then comes back in with a bang. It's like Skywatcher's got a girlfriend now, and they're not getting involved in any nights out or group chats, and then we're going to find out one day they've broke up. But hey ho, we're right back into it, and yeah.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question that you pose as well. Like, what do they owe us? And like, again, devil's advocate, I can see a lot of people in the community kind of saying, well, where would they be without the community? Ross kind of platformed them. They got a lot of attention very quickly. They got a lot of promotion from people who were hopeful that what they would do would be transparent and solid. And now we're in this wishy-washy stage. I can definitely see people kind of saying, well, they actually owe us quite a bit in the community because they've made all these claims and we've promoted them and we've spread the message of Skywatcher. And yet we're in July and it's wishy-washy. They're quiet. They've pulled back. They've even, stepped backwards on some of their statements from January where they said, we have this proof. Now it's, we plan to get this proof. And it's like, well, which is it? There's just some frustrating tension there. But like we said, it is a finite amount of time that they get with this. They said by the end of 2025, why can't I say that? They're going to have X, Y, Z kind of sorted out in their white paper they published. So that's what we hold them to, is their own words, and we see where they go, right?
So should we just say right now, we just need to be a bit more patient with this one?
Yeah, I think so. Like, good things come to those who wait, right? And whether they are successful or aren't, it's going to happen without our input. They're not asking for our money. They're just asking, like, just watch what we do. They YouTube. What are the views like on the YouTube? Are they making bank? Are they millionaires from YouTube, or is it just?
Oh, I doubt it. You say
It's
good things
probably.
come to those who wait. I think the Ocean Gate guy was quite patient.
This is the really dark touchstone for this whole episode.
I'm just checking out Skywatcher's YouTube. I'm doing that cool kids thing of like, I'm live pulling stuff up.
Yeah, I'm curious.
500,000 views, 400,000. That's
Wait, is it going down in viewership since the early one? What is it
part
looking like?
part one was 644,000. Part two was 435. 5 months ago, 3 months ago. That's they're not making like they are not getting rich off that, folks. Right? Put it that way.
No,
Uh,
no, they're not. And just as a quick aside, I'd really recommend if anyone's curious about money in the UFO kind of industry, and like what we do here, how much money is made through YouTube and stuff like that. Jimmy from UAP Files put up a really good video where he was very transparent with his earnings and just gives people a good idea of what kind of money YouTube makes. And it's not much, folks, but go watch. He shows you the proof, and it's really good to kind of go, oh, okay, there really isn't that much money in the UFO world unless you're like the cream of the crop, you know?
I think even for those getting like the half a millions of views, they'll make all right money. But again, if you then have a crew behind you and production and people you're paying and
Gotta
all
pay
that as
him.
well, like,
Yep.
but yeah, yeah, make sure you like and subscribe, folks, and hit the notification bell. Do the comment thing. I need to get better at that.
Sign up for the membership and the Patreon too.
Yeah, yeah. I've heard folks say that by signing up to the membership, they've actually their life's got better. I don't know. I don't want to say that out there without it being true.
Was there someone that couldn't walk and they can walk now? I vaguely remember that kind of happening when they signed up the membership.
I think
might have just been a story. I don't know.
Yeah, back in December, Jake Barber signed up, and then in January, thought Skywatcher. Bang, there we go.
Yeah, not saying it's directly.
Not true. That's not true. In case anyone's like, yeah, Jake Barber signed up. On that note, right?
Go on.
No. I was going to say my other point, right, is Jake Barber, Matthew Brown, the next whistleblower could be the most important. So we've had a few this year come forward. Couple of things I'll throw out there, Dan, and get your take on it. Given we've had, I suppose, just this year, Jake Barber, then Matthew Brown coming forward, will gatekeepers get their own guy out in front that could sabotage this down the line or be disinformation or muddy the water? Have we already had that? Have the gatekeepers got their man, their woman out there already? If the next whistleblower coming forward is a dud or it's something repetitive, is that going to hamper this whole whistleblower route? Because the whistleblower thing's something, for me particularly, coming into this topic, not coming into, I've been into UFOs for my whole life, like I said, but really getting involved in the social stuff in the podcast from 2020, whistleblowers were always like the holy grail. People wanted whistleblowers. Is it almost like we really need to see something substantial from one of them, or that becomes a bit of a dead end? And then with the hearing scheduled for July, is there going to be anything around that? So yeah, I don't know. Thoughts?
Yeah, so for me, I think if the next whistleblower was dud, it wouldn't necessarily affect kind of what I thought of the subject, because, bring the evidence, we'll investigate. If it shows up nothing, it shows up nothing. That's the fair kind of route to this. I'd be biased if I said, we just have to believe whistleblowers. Everything they say, we have to believe them without evidence,
Yeah.
or equally the other way around. We're just going to ignore everything if they don't have a piece of a UFO to show us. I think both the bad faith positions, and just look at the evidence, investigate. If it shows nothing, great. That's something off our table. If it shows something, awesome. That means we're progressing. But for the public, I think a dud whistleblower, every single one of them, damages the conversation around this subject in the kind of the wider public. We saw the Wall Street Journal recently kind of trying to play that angle as well. Like they put out 2 articles that were really strange and misinformed in a lot of ways, and pushed a particular narrative. And a lot of the public will have seen that, and they'll just switch off now to the subject. And so they'll stop paying attention without anything substantial from a whistleblower. If Bob Lazar came forward with his 115 now, conversation changes, I think. But if it's just more stories.
We didn't talk about the Wall Street Journal stuff.
No, we didn't, no.
I have the opinion that most of the talking and interaction with those articles were done by the UFO community. So this kind of panic around, the public are going to read these and be really put off. Again, are the public going out their way to read Wall Street Journal articles that are behind a paywall on the UFO
what is this
topic?
subscriber base?
I think it's into the hundreds of thousands, potentially. But again, it's a niche within a niche, isn't it? So you've got people who subscribe to this kind of stuff for a reason. For business news, I'm guessing, is a big one. You're then going to have like a smaller subsection going into it for that kind of stuff. I just felt there was I don't want to say overreaction, but there was almost like unnecessary fear around the impact of those articles.
Unnecessary fear, I would agree with that. So they have over 4 million paying subscribers, including both print and digital.
Fuck 'em.
Of course, doesn't mean that those people are all going to read it.
Yeah.
Just like, if I pick up a newspaper, I won't read everything in it. It'll
But you
just
said print
bits.
though. Does that mean people who buy the Wall Street Journal, as
Yes.
opposed to they're not subscribed just to the online?
Oh, no, it means they're subscribed, but getting the hard copy to the door instead of just doing the digital stuff. I don't know how the subscription works. I would imagine there's 2 levels. If you want the paper, you can pay for it, but otherwise you just use the website and can read their stuff. But yeah, you're right. It's behind a paywall. And the most commentary on it I did see from the UFO community. And there are certain things in these articles that, are spoken about as this is a debunking article, where they say they're working with the intelligence community or they're being influenced and so on and so forth. I like to kind of think of the writers as just like you and I, just human, like maybe they came into this very intentionally to be fair, and that was the information they were given, so that's what they're passing on.
They spoke
I
to a
don't
lot of
know
names in
because
the community, like Stephen Bassett
yes,
was in touch with them.
sure. And so you think that, I mean, yeah, to speak to like Greenwald and to Bassett, and they've done a fair bit of legwork to identify those people. But then we had Greenwald kind of saying that they spoke to him for like hours and hours and hours and hours, and they only included this tiny bit that kind of backed their narrative. I don't know what the development of the article looked like. For all I know, they came in very kind of sincerely, and this is what they put out, and they just got some stuff wrong, or maybe it was a complete conspiracy. But I think you're right in kind of saying that the Wall Street Journal, it's a niche of a niche of a niche. How many subscribers to Wall Street Journal of those 4 million are going to stop in their tracks and read part 1 and 2 of the UFO article?
Yeah.
I can't imagine many, right? So it almost comes across like it's just created for noise, or to just feed in because it's popular, or to have the community fight amongst themselves or something like that. And that's what happened. But yeah, like I mentioned it in relation to that public thing with the whistleblower. I kind of see it as a little bit separate, but I thought I'd bring it in because we haven't spoken about it. But I think, the more weak whistleblowers we have that don't come with evidence, the less the public pays attention to the new ones.
Yeah. And I'd like to see some follow up as well, because Jake Barber came out, was pretty prevalent back in January, February, March, early Skywatcher days. Done Jesse. I was looking with the YouTube stuff there. His appearance on American Alchemy with Jesse Michaels has almost exactly the same amount as Skywatcher's most popular video. So there's a similar audience, going back and forward there. Same with James Fowler, really similar numbers, 400,000 ish. So yeah, Matthew Brown as well came out with Napping Corbell. Eventually seemed to date itself to around about March, I think I worked out roughly towards the end of March, because they referenced the 60 Minutes episode in that talk. But then we've not heard any more from Matthew Brown, other than some tweets and stuff, but he's not come out and spoken.
So that was one of my 3, was Matthew Brown.
Okay.
And kind of it felt to me like a kind of a reinvigoration of what the community was there for, what we're all pushing towards with transparency and holding the government to account and stuff like that. I felt like Matthew was very down to earth. He got people a bit more focused again. And then a couple months later, he posted this tweet from his Twitter account, son of Abra Melin. And I don't have the full text of the tweet, but it got weird a little bit, right?
Yeah,
like people, there were references to angelic beings. It was nodding towards some really esoteric stuff.
Gets very Nicolas Cage, National Treasure.
Crowley. Sure, yeah.
If you fold the $1 bill counterclockwise and then look at it this way, it opens up a gate if you take it to the museum. And yeah,
I watched those again recently. They're great movies. They should definitely make more of those. But yeah, it spoke about the death of AI as well. Sam Altman from OpenAI, ChatGPT, had created an artificial general intelligence and murdered it. And he was trying to get Elon's attention as well, to talk to him about stuff. And that, I think, if that had come out first, people would have been a bit more kind of, stand back and watch kind of what he had to present with Jeremy and George, but it came out after. So I think the interview was well received. It focused us, but then this tweet seemed to fracture the conversation around him, because they're, you know, I've spoken to you before, like I've been to Boleskine House in Scotland and meditated in the room where Crowley did the Abnormalin ritual, and visited all these places like in New Orleans that he also went to. And kind of, I have some friends who are in the OTO, which was like Crowley's, I guess you could call it like group or collective or organization or religion, some people would call it. Um, and it's seen as very, anything that Crowley touches is seen as evil by people because of the way that it's been kind of spoken about in the modern day. He gets referred to as the great beast, and that kind of gets brought up a lot. But that was actually his mum. Like his mum was very Catholic, and he would always misbehave, so she called him the great beast when he was a kid, you know, and it just stuck. He took her on ironically as a nickname. But he also entertained these kind of darker things, you know, like in some of Crowley's writing, he will say, like just as an example, kill 1,000 children, and that will get people's attention and people will talk about it and his word will spread. What he's actually referring to is masturbation and killing a bunch of semen in the text when he's kind of talking about those things, and he's just talking about it in a really cheeky way that's going to be provocative for people.
Yeah.
So and as well around the Abnormalin ritual itself, where people say that he was summoning his guardian angel, that is what the intention was. But Crowley actually quit that ritual 6 months in and had to go to France to help a friend, which is wild to think about because he would have had to go from bumfuck nowhere in Scotland to France back in the day when there were no trains, cars. That's a bit of a journey, you know, like there's got to be a good friend that you're dropping that for to go and see in France. But he never completed it. And the actual ritual is meant to be 18 months long. You're meant to eat certain things. It's not a violent ritual, as I often see kind of people talking about, especially when Matthew put that tweet out. But it's all about kind of sitting with yourself in quiet and darkness and reflecting on your lesser parts, you know. Do I get jealous of people? Am I a bit greedy with things? And kind of honestly having that conversation with yourself and coming out of it with a bit of knowledge about who you are and
Sounds
how
more
you
like
could be
fucking
better.
Buddhism than...
Right, exactly. And this is exactly what Crowley kind of was into. He was taking things from all of these different religions, bringing them into this one kind of organization to kind of go, this is kind of self-help with tongue in cheek. You know, it's Freud before Freud, essentially, because it is. It's all self-help stuff. You know, be kind to yourself, know your darker parts so that you know who you are and how you operate in this world. And it's just, like I say, it's just self-help stuff. And all this mystique around it makes posts like Matthew Brown's one come across like this crackpot thing, when actually there's some interesting things that he's kind of playing with there. Even the fact that he knows this esoteric stuff, like for you, because, you know, obviously I'm talking about Crowley here. I think for people that are informed about that tweet didn't really rub them too much the wrong way, but it made them kind of raise an eyebrow and go, oh, he's kind of into this stuff. Interesting. Like that's an interesting, well, interest. I'm saying interest too much. What did you think? What are your impressions of Crowley, and what did you think when you saw that from Matthew Brown?
I don't know much of the Crowley stuff other than bits of documentaries and what you kind of talk about. I think for me it would have been more like, without more of a knowledge, kind of a culty guy and sitting around with loads of candles lit and screaming incantations into a big book with fucking spells flying around him, you know, like I've seen in 1,000 movies, which isn't the case.
Are you talking like what people imagine like Satanism to be?
Yeah,
like
basically,
you know, slitting animals' throats and getting the blood
big
and
pentagrams
you know, like that
on
kind of
the
stuff.
floor and all that kind of stuff. But then I think it speaks to what I've mentioned about whistleblowers, where we've all got these ideas of what these people should be like, and then when you speak to them and meet them, and if you put Jake Barber, David Grush, Jason Sands, Matthew Brown, Lenville Logan, Sarah Gam, and you line them all up, and then you hear their initial, oh, they worked on this and they saw this or they had access to this, but then you find out about their personalities. Oh, and Sarah Gam's got a cat picture behind her. Oh, so she's a crazy cat lady, and you know, it's like Dan's pointing to a cat picture behind him. But it's like people have got a view of what they expect whistleblowers to be. That doesn't take away that these people had access to what they had access to, and they open up and give you a little bit of insight into their life on podcasts like this and interviews and everything else, and maybe reaching out on social media and posting some tweets, and then there's almost an outcry of, well, they can't be serious if they're into this, and they can't be someone who worked on a UFO program in any way, shape, or form. Bob Lazar can't have done what he done because he was a pimp that ran a brothel and was involved in this illegal stuff, right? So
I see what you're doing there. I
yeah,
see.
but there just seems to be a little bit of a theme, doesn't there? That
Sure, yeah.
all these people are imperfect and flawed because they are human. It doesn't mean they didn't do. And again, for me, it's the perfect folks to have involved in this stuff. And yeah, it's just shouldn't. Again, I've always said before, like the famous one being like Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings. You read it in novel form, and then someone brings it to life on screen, and it's their interpretation of what you've got in your head. And then when you see it, you go, "Oh, I like this. I like this. I like this. I don't like this. I thought this would be different." That's all we're getting now with these whistleblowers, where
Sure.
they've got opinions and biases, and they've got sources, and they've got narratives or agendas that are made up of all these opinions and people they've spoken to over months, years, people they've been involved with, because that's just what we do as human beings. It's not all a rigid one size fits all approach with this, especially at the, because it's not as if we've got someone coming out now who's like a major general who literally was Bob Lazar's boss, who used to oversee him working on the craft. We've not had that yet. It's still a relatively surface level whistleblower involvement. Even if you want to call, let's just presume Bob Lazar's telling the truth. Even a Bob Lazar is still relatively surface level. He done a job. Do you know what I mean? He was just a small cog in a wheel. We've not got the bigger cogs or the hardware yet. So yeah, I can see that. I think I don't read too much into it, that people have got all kind of weird afflictions and whatnot, or, you know, yeah, people are people.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm sure there's some people that won't listen to you because they're Celtic supporters, right? So
Idiots.
it's just we're all everyone has their thing that they're just like, I don't believe that because of X, Y, Z, and it's just their thing. It's
There's
not
a few
objective
Celtic
thing,
fans
right?
listen to this.
Oh yeah, hi to them.
Yeah, I wouldn't say hi to them, but you know,
Andy said he stands for everything you don't. If you're listening,
won't disagree. But yeah,
your shed's going to be on fire next episode. I take
some
that
of
back.
some of them will reach out now after that. So I wish you nothing but ill in the new season. But yeah, did you have a third, or have we covered all three?
So I have potentially two more.
Okay, go on.
One is more that I want to talk about because I'm curious.
I've done my
are.
three, so take.
Oh,
over.
you're doing your three?
Yep.
Okay. So my third one would be: is 2025 the year of change for AARO? You know, we kind of have had Kirkpatrick representing AARO for a few years now, and I think it's safe to say that people don't really like the dude, and you know that's fine. Kirkpatrick, he seems to play coy with the UFO thing and kind of make underhanded statements about the kind of people that would be into the UFO thing and so on and so forth. Now he's gone. Who we have is Koslowski, John Koslowski. Is that correct?
Yep.
And he seems more open to talking about the anomalous kind of stuff in the data piles with the press. We've also had Tim Phillips. You know, you spoke to him. He's been on a few other shows too. He seems a lot nicer in interviews than he is on LinkedIn. I will say that. But his attitude seems to have changed a little bit. You know, he's not so, at least in the interviews that I've watched, he hasn't been super disparaging towards the subject. It just kind of comes down to, yes, there is stuff that we don't know what it is, but I don't have any proof that it's aliens, so I'm not going to say it's aliens, which is kind of a nice neutral place. You know, there's no animosity in that, right? Like that's kind of where we all are. We're like, yeah, I don't know what it is. I want to know where it is. It doesn't seem to be anything humans can make. So there's this tantalizing mystery there. So we're now at a place where people are kind of becoming dissatisfied with AARO in Congress and the progress that they're making, even though they're, you know, simmering nicely now, I would say. But there's been talk of the FBI kind of being given the lead with some legislation kind of moving through. And that gives me pause because the only place that we've have Koslowski giving interviews and stuff like that. Phillips is out giving interviews. We've seen Kirkpatrick giving interviews. The FBI people, where are they? There's so much less transparency from this FBI department supposedly investigating UFOs than there is from AARO, that I've got to wonder whether that's a good idea or whether people are just seeing the grass is greener on the other side. What do you think? How would you review AARO's 2025? And do you think they've changed?
Um, I think the big one for me is the legislation coming in that's potentially going to give the FBI the lead on investigating the UFO UAP stuff.
Hmm.
That could be the death of AARO then, and the way the Trump administration seems to be going with a lot of organizations, budget cuts and whatnot, where it can, it would make sense that AARO will have the plug pulled on it then at that point and not be required anymore. So could see AARO being gone by the end of 2020, by the end of 2025 potentially.
Do you
Um,
think that would be a good thing if the FBI
do you know? I don't
replaced
think it
them?
matters anymore. I'm not expecting anything from AARO. Um, they've not delivered much either way. I don't think they've delivered much even in the way of a good round of debunking. I think it's almost
No.
seemed quite clumsy and kind of poorly done. You would expect better from your enemy if indeed that's what it
Sure.
was for a lot of folks. So it's just been a bit of a nothing ultimately, and I'm not fussed if it goes. I don't think. Do you know what? I think it's one of those things that, see if in like they done say it was abolished today privately.
Hmm.
I could see it being one of those organizations in like a year's time. Someone one day tweets and goes, "Is Arrow still a thing?" And we all go, and then you look back and go, "Oh, they've not done anything since last year." I honestly see it being like that. Um, so yeah, for me, I can see Arrow going by the wayside now. Um, John Kozlowski seemed to have a little bit more of the bit between his teeth. I still think, honestly, I still go back and forward on Kirkpatrick being a guy who was really out to be proper disinformation, really malicious on the UFO topic. I still think there was a large element of almost lethargy with it and just not really having an interest in doing it, going to just do this for a couple of years, go and deal with these fucking whack jobs and conspiracy theorists, and you'll get a nice cushy number afterwards. And the guy was just like, oh yeah, can't really be bothered, but I will. I could still see that being a part of it. As much as there's some stuff going on, we're always reading this from one side, aren't we?
Yep.
So yeah, I
Like,
think Arrow could
yeah,
potentially go, and I'm
so
not
it's a fair
fussed.
point. I think like Kirkpatrick, for me, I lean to the side that there's something fishy there, in terms of his dealings with Enigma and being at that Skinwalker Ranch presentation and stuff like that, and then saying
Yeah,
he had no interest and so on and so forth. But on the other side, people are people; they forget things. Maybe it was one meeting, one day of 1,000 meetings that he's had every day since, and he's just presenting what he's been given, and someone else is the one kind of feeding him the bad stuff. Um, or the dishonest stuff, I should say. There's a lot of conversation from the hearings of last year, and whenever Kozlowski and Arrow seem to be in interviews, we seem to have a hovering Susan Goff, the spokesperson for the DoD, and I think people want their subject away from her.
mm,
So, and whatever's going on inside the DoD, even Ross alluded to it in his the Tic-Tac is Lockheed kind of energetic rant, I'll say, where he was saying that the DoD don't actually know what this is or what's going on with it in the legacy program. They don't have access, and this is the problem, because they're making these statements out of hand when they actually know nothing, and it's being hidden from them too. So I think we've got to almost hold all these things lightly instead of going after people who are declared enemies of the subject. Would that make sense? Like, I feel like there's almost a new person to be mad at every single week, and their name always seems to be Mike.
yeah. And do you know what? Even in all of that, I get a lot of correspondence from folks who don't care about the government position, and they actually don't
Sure.
care to hear what the government think and what the government may or may not be coming out and saying about the topic, or which representatives, whether it be Arrow or DoD spokeswomen or a major general or CIA intelligence, whatever it might be, they don't care. They prefer to hear from experiencers, witnesses, from authors, whatever it may be. The last people they want to hear from is anyone involved in an official capacity. But
Sure.
on the flip side, there's a lot of folk who do. So I can appreciate that. But yeah, for me, on your arrow one, Dan, if it goes, it goes.
Sure, cool. So then my last thing that I was super excited about when it happened was a couple of weeks back, maybe not even a couple of weeks back, the Vera Rubin Observatory in Chile kind of put up their first images from their sky scans. And this is a particularly cool one because, yeah, it's set beginning full operation soon, but it's designed for what's called the LSST, the Legacy Survey of Space and Time, which, you know, if you're into the UFO subject, they're two things that we want to investigate for UFOs. It scans the entire visible night sky every few nights, capturing about 20 terabytes of data per night and creating a 10-year movie of the dynamic universe. So what we've got is something that looks at the whole night sky on a regular basis. And before we're kind of looking through pinholes at particular parts of the night sky we're pointing out, whereas now we've got this sweep-in, mega high definition, it's 3.2 gigapixel camera, the largest ever built, and it's going to be looking into like a lot of dark matter conversation is kind of coming from what it's looking at, because it's looking at such a large swath of the sky. But also any astronomer can just jump on and start pouring through the data that this telescope is gathering. So if we think about anything visiting from other planets, this thing, the Vera Rubin, should be, you know, if the visitors are aware when they're being watched, they're not going to be here half as much, basically, with this thing looking at the sky and sweeping it every few nights. It's a crazy amount of data, a crazy amount of detail. They've already found like exoplanets with it and stuff like that. And it's not even officially like, you know, doing its mission yet. But just like the James Webb, this thing is going to, you know, revolutionize astronomy. If you're really into astronomy, you'll see like a lot of new developments and stuff like that. But it could also find something that will break out of that niche and be front page news, I think. What do you think when it comes to this stuff? Do you just look at it and kind of go nerd and move on, or do you like, oh, that could be good?
No, it could be good. I've looked it up. It looks really cool. I always enjoy seeing the images. $800 million was funded to the tune of, which is that's, you're close to $1 trillion there, folks. Or close to $1 billion to trillion, fucking hell. Close to $1 billion to fund this, which is no small amount of money. Looks really cool. Again, I suppose if I'm really lazy with my language here, because it's late at night and all that kind of stuff,
you're allowed.
I would like one of these things. The images look spectacular, right? Mm-hmm. However, I'd like one of these things to pick up a Dyson sphere or something really cool that looks alien. You get these wonderful sprawling terabytes worth of data of images of gassy clouds and stuff like that, which are incomprehensibly big, because it's just like, that's ridiculous that something can be as big as that. That it's not just a cloud you can look at. Like, you wouldn't be able to look at that cloud of gas because it's so, you wouldn't even see
but
it.
Also, like, a lot of what you see in it is, you know, it's scanning in infrared and stuff like that. So our eyes wouldn't even pick it up. You know, these things are there without us seeing them.
So it's one of those things for me. It looks cool. Technology's advancing, getting better. You know, we're seeing further than ever before. We're seeing more than ever before. We're traveling further than ever before. But, you know, Ocean Gate, we still have issues.
But if we're so advanced, why would we crash? There's that. It's right back
absolutely.
There, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, no, it's an interesting one to bring up. I know you like your sciencey stuff.
Yeah, and I think it's relevant, and I would like to see something like, you know, I'm not going to go hard at him on it, but I saw Jesse Michaels offering Kirkpatrick $100,000 to do an interview on his channel. There, I don't think you're going to get more truth or crazy dramatic kind of things out of an interview with Kirkpatrick at this point. People feel how they feel about him. I would love to see that 100K given to Avi Loeb to set up, you know, 5 more observation statements across the world, and maybe we can get a country blanketed or something.
I was
UAP
really annoyed
stuff.
at that. I offered Kirkpatrick 25K and he was thinking about it. And so I got one-upped by Jesse Michaels there. Really frustrating.
Well, I mean, say what you want about Kirkpatrick, but he's not gone for the easy 100K there, right? He could just take it and just sit there and just nod, right? Play on his phone the whole time.
Well, do you know what? He could, because if I was him, I'd be like, I'm just going to take this guy's money, and I will sit there and be like,
I'll just do the worst interview ever.
And
just be like, yeah. see standards last night. Yeah, yeah.
Jose Mourinho done it once, a couple of times actually in his career now, where he done it for Real Madrid. He went into a press conference and just sat, and he got asked questions and just never spoke, and then left. It's like,
That's
done
the
my
way to do
duty.
it.
Yeah.
See, that
So,
that would have qualified him for the 100K, right?
but if he does take it, oh, you've took the money. If he doesn't take it, oh, you're avoiding the questions. So it's a bit of a
Yeah,
lose-lose.
so lose lose. Absolutely, and that's the thing. When I saw it, I was like, this is nothing but it reminded me of Mr. Beast, the kind of stunts that he pulls, and it's just for clicks and stuff like
I've
that.
still
And
never watched any
maybe
Mr. Beast stuff.
maybe Jesse's heart is in the right place, but that just reeks of not a good thing to do for me. Just a
Yeah.
waste of money. It could go so much further in other places for this subject.
Yeah. And Dan, I've got a lot of questions. I might park those for another day because we've gone quite long. I know you've not got hours and hours and hours.
Yeah. Well, why don't we do like an AMA or something?
Yeah.
And we can just gather all the questions and we'll just
I'll
do
get
that.
them all there properly. So off the back of
Sure.
anything we have said, I do want to finish up with something though. So off the back of everything we've talked about, folks, if you want, we'll do a proper AMA in the coming days or week or so when Dan's got availability and so do I. So if you've sent in questions already, I've got them. I've got a huge list. Anything you want added, use the contact form on the website. Ideally, it's the best place for me. ThatUFOpodcast.com contact form, or you can email. Either way would be great. But Dan, do you want to finish off? There's some news items in the last couple of months since you've not been on that we haven't talked about. We can kind of fire through those kind of quick fiery style if you want to bring those up.
Yeah, for sure. So, what did you think of the Boogosphere? Am I saying that right? Is that what it's called? I saw these videos around of in
You're
South
asking a
America.
guy
There's
with a
this
Scottish
silver
fucking
sphere.
accent, some Colombian city. I think it was Booga, yeah.
Boogosphere.
Booga,
Yeah.
Booga, yeah, Booga.
Fuchsia.
I thought it was interesting. I know there's another video came out, isn't there, in the last couple of days of
Yeah.
another one allegedly. Ronnie Vernay had tweet that it looked like a fuel tank that had been kind of rendered a little bit. But then I know who was it said that it saw up? Oh, it was Eric Burleson said seeing it up close, the holes in it look like they're filled with little fibers. It's not like a hole. It's not been painted on. It does look interesting. For me, it seems really easy to do the science on this stuff, and we should be getting that done. The videos do look quite interesting. But again, can you take any video anymore as evidence? Because
Sure.
they don't look great, but in a good way, because they don't look really clean and polished and all
Yeah,
that kind
kind
of
of like
stuff.
the Signs video, right, of the
Yeah,
alien. It's like, yeah, it looks like someone just in panic, kind of
yeah,
trying to film this thing. Yeah, that one. It's another one like the Nazca mummies. I'm following it. Jaime is involved again, so my flag is up because he's involved in so many hoaxes and things like that.
and
But
his
I've got to
son's
believe,
involved.
and his son's
His
involved,
son
and
done the introduction stuff for the conference.
yeah, that's right. So, but part of me wants to believe that he's sincere and good-hearted, and is really believing, like, thinking that yeah, people can give him 100 hoaxes, but he just needs one video to be real, and that's it. So I think he's just operating in that way. Hopefully,
Yeah,
yeah. They're on the drone. Sorry, on the Boogosphere. I thought in the videos they look cool. Know exactly what you mean with it. They're kind of looking real,
yep.
but also they don't really make any movements that aren't just drone-like movements, right? If you just went and bought a DJI, you could move it in the same fashion as that thing in the videos. The only weird thing about it is that what we've been told about what's inside them and what
Mm-hmm.
the markings on them and stuff like that. The markings for me are kind of janky. They look really bad.
They don't look
We always
perfect.
talk no, we always talk about when we're talking about ancient Egypt and some of the markings on stuff there. Some of them are perfect and some of them just look crap.
Crop
And
circles.
you can
The
see,
ones
yeah,
that look
right.
phenomenal and so intricate, and then other ones you look and go, yeah, that was a couple of guys with boards on their feet.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, people mark things. So it could have been found and it's a genuine UAP, but some numpty decided to do something cool on it and make it more intriguing.
Yep.
I've seen some people bring forward bits of art that kind of resemble it, and they've said they ripped it off. It's not similar to the art, it looks similar, but it's not exact with the art. But it's janky enough that I can believe a human kind of did it after it was found. The idea of the fuel tank I thought was really intriguing. The seam is in the correct place. There's cold fusion in terms of pouring it together so that you can't see the seam. And also in those tanks, they have fiber optics that kind of stick out on the outside, which also has been said about this boogosphere.
You
So right
know,
now I'm leaning skeptical, but follow it along as always. Take it
I
seriously, follow it
imagine
lightly.
I imagine this happens outside the UK, right? But you know, in the UK, you do that thing in school where you write a note on a balloon and you tie it up and you let it go, and then
Yeah.
someone in Cornwall writes to you one day and goes, "Oh, I found your balloon, Dan. Here's £5, you know,
Yeah.
for having your balloon, right?" Or you draw a little picture or something and it floats away and they find it, and usually you give like your school address and someone writes to you that found the balloon. Perhaps this is just was some NHI juvenile infant that sent off. This is like their school project. Send these round the galaxy, see where they land. And there's Dan sitting on his fucking high horse going, "Oh, they wasn't too impressed with the symbology." And some little entity sitting there crying somewhere going,
And the
"That's
parents trying to comfort them, be like,
yeah.
there, don't worry. It's just a
Who's this
horrible
prick
Earth,
with a
man.
cat picture behind him having a go at me about my
Yeah,
symbology?
no, it's fair.
Have
I
you sent a
don't know why they
sphere
speak
across the
English,
fucking
but,
cosmos? No, you haven't? Like,
like a message in a ball. Yeah,
yeah.
could be. It just gotta kind of continue to pay attention to these things, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then the other one that came out that I don't think we've spoken about was the Disc in the Clouds released
Mm.
from Corbell. They had several clips, the thing going where you couldn't really see it very clearly, and then they had like an AI interpreted one, which initially I was really down that Jeremy even included it, but he said it's included in the briefing, so he was just presenting
Yeah.
it as it was given to him. Totally fair in that regard, but I think the AI one was what I saw passed around most and what people were talking about most about it being a sphere, whereas in the original video, it's quite hard to discern what's actually there. What did you think?
I thought the content is potentially really cool. Very gave me like Nope vibes to it, the
Sure.
movie. Um,
Like, because it looks sideways as well, right?
yeah,
Like if it was a disc, it was like almost
just
sideways through the clouds.
ghosting along. I get when I saw folks saying, you know, we are being told it's filmed from a platform above looking down.
Okay.
Um, but other folks are saying it looks like it could be from below shooting up. It's hard to discern, so I'm going to take it face value. But to be fair to both Jeremy and George, again, I think they learned really quickly. If you're going to put stuff like this out, embrace the community and the crowdsourcing of
Mhm.
people who can look at this stuff and very quickly determine what it is. And they put it out and said, look, if you can read all the shit that's on the screen, if you can find anything in this that gives us size, location, position, all that stuff, that would be great. I've not seen anything personally in terms of follow-up that's debunked or shown that it's 100% all good.
Yeah. Same.
So for me, it's probably amongst the more interesting stuff that they've managed to get out. What it is though, I don't know. I've seen people saying like eclipse and stuff like that, which could it be? Potentially, but somebody would have to tell me that's got knowledge of those camera systems to be like,
Sure.
this is
Yeah.
why it. Somebody would probably look and go, of course it's not fucking eclipse. Look at it. It's okay. I can't tell that.
Yeah. Sure.
Do I want it to be a huge disc flying about the clouds? Absolutely. Of course I do. So I would love to see more, hear more on that, get some follow up. I think we've been burned a lot this year. Dan, I don't think I have to go into the detail of people presenting stuff, saying it's one thing and it's something else. That that we talked about a lot this year, I think,
Hmm.
done a lot of damage. And if you look at any, when we talk about the Wall Street Journal articles,
Yes.
if I look at anything that's more public facing, or if you're on Reddit or Facebook and you click on comment sections, something you see a lot of, or I see a lot of now, is people referencing misidentifications from the last year, and
Yeah.
that's
I've
done
I've seen that too.
a lot of damage to that kind of thing. So I'm very wary when stuff like this goes out, but I think Jeremy and George have at least put it out in the right way.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The misidentifications over the past while have been frustrating, and I can. It it's one of those things where I understand the mistakes happen and so on and so forth, and then you've got to kind of entertain the fact that maybe this wasn't a mistake, but at the same time, it's frustrating because it just gives so much ammo to the people who just don't even want this subject spoken about. You know, Mick West was clicking his heels, jumping
Yep.
around his garden when he saw that, and and it's just like one of those like, ah, I imagine somewhat how you feel when Rangers play and they lose 1-0. You know, if there was an own goal, you'd just be like,
Happened a lot last season.
oh my god, you'd still come back next week to watch the game, right?
Oh
But
God,
you're
yeah.
gonna remember that for a long time, and it's gonna, the guy that scored the own goal, you will remember. That's the defining thing about him, right? So you're just gonna remember it.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. But no, I thought I like that. I've said so many times, I like seeing footage, especially when it comes from people that I see as credible sources. Not that everything they put out is 100%, on the button. But I would still like to see any of the big names in the UFO topic, whether I like them or not, follow them or not. If Stephen Greer puts out some footage, I will go and check it out and chase it down.
Same.
I'd rather see it than not. I'm not
Yep.
going to be the guy who goes, "Oh, Stephen Greer's put a video out of a disc in the cloud." Not interested.
And
No,
and I
because then I'm
think
being a hypocrite as well.
this is what I like about our conversations: the fact that both of us will inform ourselves about the devil's advocate position of what we speak about. We're
Try
not
to.
just like, I know what I know and I am correct. It's more like, I know what I know, I think this, but I'm gonna check with X, Y, and Z. I don't know, and that's okay.
Yeah, 100%.
Good place to be, I think. And then there were a few other things that kind of came out over the past week that I
Go
wanted to
on.
touch on. So
Yeah, yeah,
one, I saw something that the UK, the headline was the UK to host the US style UAP hearings for military whistleblowers. And then that headline's great. It's really provocative. And I'm like, what? The UK are doing hearings?
yeah. I'm hosting
And
them.
then, well, I mean, if you're hosting them, your plans are further than the actual people who made this claims
Yep.
plans, who basically, when you read the article, you find out that a new UK UFO disclosure group, which is just, like we did with UAP Media, is a collective of people who just want to
Yep.
move the ball down the field. Cool, very cool. Um, led by filmmaker Mark Christopher Lee,
Yep.
has secured a meeting with a House of Lords minister to launch public hearings. Now, the House of Lords minister doesn't know what they're meeting about. He's not going to know until he shows up in the room with them. So to say to launch public hearings, that's the hope. It's a good hope. I'm with you. But that headline really annoyed me when I read the article, because not even.
Essentially, the headline might as well have said, it would be like, do you know what? It's like me going to the local council and inquiring about using an empty piece of land to play football on, and just going, yeah, if I
Sure.
wanted to use this and if I had wanted to build on it and all that kind of stuff and create a team, and and a newspaper then running with new football team enters English Premier League.
Yes, absolutely.
Maybe
Like,
in 25 years'
maybe.
time, with
Sure.
hundreds of millions of pounds of investment and things going well, and yeah, but all I've done is ask the council, could I play football here with my mates?
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good way to explain it. Their
Right.
goal is to create a parliamentary forum and potentially a select committee empowered to hear witness testimonies shielded by non-disclosure rules. But whether that happens or not remains to be seen.
Lovely thought.
It's not
Million miles
going to
away
be
from it in the
anything.
UK.
Yes, absolutely. Um, then we have Senator Round saying that the UAPDA is likely to be resubmitted to be considered this year. What do you think? Like, is that gonna, would it change things? Because Ross interviewed Senator Rounds, and one of the things that surprised me hearing Senator Rounds talk was that Rounds said that including NHI in the UAP Disclosure Act wasn't because they knew something. It was because they were trying to close all of these loopholes
Yep.
that could make the legislation ineffective. They wanted to pass this legislation and go, okay, we passed this with sincerity, we've investigated, we found nothing, so there's nothing there. They just wanted to give it the best shot of succeeding. So that surprised me, because I can't remember if anyone explicitly said it, but I certainly had the impression that they knew a bit more and therefore they'd use this language in the UAP Disclosure Act because they knew a bit more. Am I wrong on that? Was that your impression as well, or?
Yeah, I think if they're trying to go down the route of let's get this act through and we're going to use all the legislation that gets passed to really push things forward, then it's the same as me messaging Sydney Sweeney every month and hoping she replies. So yeah, that isn't happening. Um, I think that I don't see the point in it at this point as a little bit like, when we said Skywatcher, are they talking to someone else in the background? Have they got a
Sure.
different, modus operandi than we can actually see from a public perception? I think, and I think we've talked about this before, that there's a chance that the UAP Disclosure Act, they're doing it for reasons such as, like you say, Rounds mentioning, we're trying to close loopholes, we're trying to go, well, why can't you put this through? Why won't you put this through? I think, again, there is this broader issue of the world right now is a shit show, and I appreciate how hard it must be to get anything put through Congress and the Senate. The way things are right now, well, depending on what they are, I see stuff is going through, to then be the folks trying to get the UFO stuff through, which surely is still how a lot of this stuff is looked at. Again, age of disclosure, timing, the right people seeing stuff like that, whistleblowers coming forward, hearings having a public impact. I think there would almost have to be a perfect storm of various things just falling into place at the right time, that a UAP Disclosure Act gets passed in its full form. But that would be new whistleblowers coming forward, a big public interest, a David Grush times 10, multiple David Grushes coming forward, real progress, real tangible. Wait a minute. Not only have we knocked the door open, I've mentioned before, and it opens a bit and then closes. No, this time someone sticks their foot in the gap and goes, no, it's not closing this time. And we would need a few things, I think, to fall into place for it to really, really have that impact. Again, plenty of people get in touch with me to let me know that the eminent domain stuff, of course, is already in the US Constitution. So it's a bit of a unnecessary thing to have there, almost more of a, I don't know, a public, it's a bit of a show. Like, yeah, but we want this approved. Well, it's there already.
It's funny you mention a bit of a show, because and this came up, I think it was Eric Weinstein that kind of first put the idea of kayfabe out into the world with this subject, but it's come up again recently where I'm seeing a lot of people talk about disclosure, this process that you and I are, we're commenting on through the whole of this show, I guess, that it's like professional wrestling, that you have opposition, you have a heel, everyone knows what's going on, and actually they're just playing kind of, play fighting for our benefit to put on a show. And that kind of stuff, it gets under my skin a little bit, not in a bad way. I just mean, it makes me think, because you look at, for example, Mike Turner we were told that he was blocking a bill, the passing of the UAP.
Stone Cold Mike Turner.
Stone Cold Mike Turner, that's right. But then when you look at someone like Senator Rounds or Schumer, and you look at their funding, you can see that they're being funded by the same people that have funded Turner, Lockheed, all these people that are said to be the secret keepers. So why on one side have we got people being paid by Lockheed trying to get this out, but on the other side you got supposedly people being paid by Lockheed to conceal it? And it's just like, is this all just for show? Like, you just slow walking us down this path into the inevitable, we are not alone and no other information whatsoever? Is this what controlled disclosure is this kind of kayfabe wrestling kind of thing? I don't know. I'm entertained, just like with wrestling, but
all I could think
like
of there is
not
the Undershumer.
Undershumer.
I know there's a few folks that do various different podcasts, and Attitude of Aggression, I think it is gets in touch quite often, and they'll appreciate that one. So, but yeah, I get folks who are like wrestling, Rangers, and UFOs all on the same podcast. So
that's a really good niche. Maybe we should give all the figures in disclosure a wrestler alternate, just so we can be like, oh, it's Gary Nolan with the steel chair at times.
Who's going to cash in there? Ross Coulthart would do the cashing in the Money in the Bank contract. Things get a little bit dull. He runs down and goes, no, it's Lockheed Martin tech. Everyone kicks off. But we could do that as bonus content perhaps one time.
Yeah, it'd be funny.
But yeah, anything else?
Then the only so actually two more things. Sorry. So one, Tim Phillips has been doing interviews. We know that because you've awesomely got to talk to him. But he addressed something that has been a point of contention for a long while about people showing up to the Tic-Tac event, the ships, the Princeton, the USS Princeton, after it happened, and taking these data tapes.
Yep.
And we've been told, no, there were no data tapes. We've been told,
bricks.
well, where the data bricks are meant to be, they're not, so they're missing. Well, Tim Phillips kind of confirmed in a recent interview with Event Horizon that UAP data from the Tic-Tac incident was taken by DARPA scientists dressed in black. He said they did land, they did retrieve the materials, and they left. Was that to do with the Tic-Tac? Maybe, we don't know, it could be something else, but I wanted to be sure to bring that up because I thought that was really interesting that AARO found that, yes, someone did land and they did take the data tapes after, I remember David Fravor, Commander David Fravor, the pilot, saying, no, that couldn't have happened. I knew I was so high ranked that I would know everything that happened on both those ships. Turns out he didn't. So I guess right there we've been told several times that fighter pilots, there's a little bit of ego there. So I guess maybe that's just that. So yeah, we know now, and I hope that gets followed up on. I'm sure we'll hear more about it in the AARO historical report. And then the last thing I wanted to bring out was that when the Wall Street Journal articles came out, a kind of response article came out from a New York Times columnist. It was like an op-ed, and he posed a question that I just wanted to leave people with and to have them think about and send in their answers, and we can talk about them. So he says, no one should assume that debunking explanations filtered through Kirkpatrick and other sources are themselves trustworthy. If we've been living through a golden age of strange leaks and insider claims, then what exactly might this era's particular psyop be intended to conceal? So what I'd like people to let you know, so we can talk about, is what do you think, if this is a psyop, what is the UFO psyop covering up?
Are you asking me now?
You can give me your answer now. You can think about it if you want, and we can talk about it when we talk about other people's, but what do you think it would be?
I think that's all for today. I think I will think about it and we will kick off. If Dan can be available in the coming days or week or so,
Sure.
unless he gets kicked out of the US and oh my god, it's ice in the background, Dan.
I'll do it. You'll just see like the alligator Alcatraz behind me.
You remember they were doing that thing for a long time where people were like swatting gamers on live streams, which is a really, really bad idea because people died with that kind of shit, didn't they? That's why I don't do live streams, because Dan would get one of those ice raids done in his home, like as as he sits like in the background, the guy's coming in taking him right out. You fucking get. But no, we can leave that one there, and I'll think about that one because it's late here at night and my brain's switching off.
You've
been very good.
We're
with your
almost
time
2 hours
as well,
in
Dan.
now. No,
yeah,
it's
and
been
half
great
an hour,
catching
40
up
minutes
again
before,
and clearing the deck, I guess. Yeah, and just catching up. Very nice.
So get in touch, folks. Anything you want to contribute to the next megasode, give us a shout. Thank you very much for listening thus far, as we rambled on a little bit towards the end, but in a good way. I would like to think people enjoy that, Dan. And yeah, Dan, are you doing anything right now you want to plug, promote, or let people know of?
Not quite yet. I do have something, but it'd be about a month and I'll
Coming
tell
soon.
people what it is. Coming soon. Yeah, I'm going to use that hashtag soon, the soonening for people. They'll love that.
Will it be before the age of disclosure?
Probably, yes.
No. Yeah, you'd fucking hope so. It's coming this side of 2025 anyway. But yeah, thank you, folks. Check out that UFOpodcast.com /contact. Fill in the form, submit your questions, thoughts, opinions, everything like that. Or you can stick those in email format, UFOUAPAM@gmail.com, as per usual. Of course, don't forget to go and pre-order your copy of the book. It is available now for pre-order. And the pre-ordering helps.
Look at that.
Proper grift.
No, you're not. And you're providing
I want my
fucking
fucking
£1, not
£1.
grifting.
Yeah, whoa. I get £1, I think, for every book that sells. So, you know.
And you worked hard, so you should get £1 for
fucking almost cried several times doing that fucking thing, can promise you. And I don't cry, so
So when people read it and there's like a little splodge of blood on the page, they know it's because the nosebleeds from the crying and the pressure.
Absolutely. Sometimes there was genuinely times I was like, oh, fuck this. Not even like in an emotional way. It wouldn't even been dramatic. Just me going, oh, fuck this. Seriously, man, this is too much effort. I'm not
schoolwork.
I'm not a big effort guy. So, but yes, no, thank you so much, folks, for checking things out. Dan, thank you very much for joining us again. It's been a while. Don't leave it so long, obviously. The next week would be ideal.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll sort something out.
Thank you for listening to everyone. And hopefully see everyone soon and we can get into the why of the PSYOP and all the questions people have sent in.
Yes, and Dan, remind me that that's the question I have to start off the next one with. So,
okay.
Awesome. Thanks, folks. Speak to you very soon. Notice your eyes keep looking over my shoulder. And for folks, spurious link on the audio side of things, this might not be ideal, but very quickly, I've actually got a hard copy of my book, folks. I'll do a little proper video for it online. So anyone looking in the background, that's the actual book. I have the real proper atlas of UFOs here, loads of maps, pictures, and there is text and stuff in there as well that I wrote. So if you've not pre-ordered it and plan on doing so, great time. It's real, it's an actual thing. Look, there you go. For the audio folks, that flick was the hard back of the book. So I'll do a proper little
How do I get one of those? How do I get a signed?
How do you get a signed copy? Well, there's so many different ways. Nathan, I'm glad you asked to order. But what we'll do is we'll go through that at the end, okay? So I don't annoy folks right now tuning in for the actual UFO news. Go and shut the fuck up, Andy, and just get on with it. But yeah, ask me again at the end, Nathan. I can run through all those details with you. Good man.